You know how it's going to be a good day when you wake up and you realize today I get to hang out with Michael Kennedy. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar organized by JetBrains. I'm Paul Everett, PyCharm developer advocate, and I'll be your host. The topic for today's webinar is 10 Git things that you wish you knew in PyCharm. Today's guest, maybe you've heard of him. This Michael Kennedy guy, friend of the webinar, proprietor of Talk Python training, Talk Python to Me, and the Python Bytes podcasts, book writer, and in a community filled to the brim with nice, giving people, the nicest, most giving person. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Paul. Hey, good to see you. Hello, everyone. That's a very nice introduction. I appreciate it. Looking forward to talking about PyCharm and Git. As we often
it's well deserved. Actually, before we jump into some things, how's the podcast doing? Last time we talked, it was zooming up the charts, man.
The podcast is doing great. It's such an honor to do the podcast because I just get to speak to so many interesting people doing fun things. It basically gives me an excuse to have all these cool, geeky conversations that I might otherwise miss, especially now.
And Python Bytes as well, right?
And Python Bytes as well. Yeah, absolutely. And, Talk Python recently at least peaked into the #1 developer podcast across all technologies.
You hit number one?
Not just Python. We even beat out JavaScript.
Oh,
so,
man.
yeah, it's going pretty well.
Congratulations. It's a lesson to all of us that if you put in the work and put in the work and put in the work, and stretch that out over some period of time, successful.
You're 7, you're almost there.
Gosh. And speaking of which, training, how's the training business going?
Super well. There's no shortage of awesome, fun things to go figure out and put a really nice presentation together and package it up for people to get better with. So my very, very last thing I did, not on the courses, but sort of last presentation teaching thing was with PyScript, which, I know you're involved with that as well.
Yes.
PyScript's very exciting.
That was a really well done video and appreciate you doing that for the PyScript community. Speaking of videos, today's webinar, it might be related to a course of yours. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. So we've done, you and I, and many of us developers, we've all done source control for many years. I don't know how you felt, but I've always felt that Git was presented in a way that people almost wanted to make it feel complicated. Like, oh, look, let me show you. Look, have you thought about an auto-squashing rebase? That would be amazing. Like, wait, what? Why are we? I just want to get the file and edit it. Like, can we just take a few steps back? You know what I mean? And
no, eat your vegetables.
Exactly. And you're always going to have to be down in the terminal, and maybe you can do your, compares, like edit some of your messages with Vim if you want to, but like this is the world you go into when you do Git. And I'm like, well, but no, there's things like PyCharm that have really fantastic tools. What if we could learn how to use source control through the nicest, most high information dense tooling that we have to work with? And the tools we're already in, instead of teaching people to leave the tools, go do stuff and come back. So yeah, I created a course that is like a pragmatic getting started with Git course. Obviously features PyCharm very prominently because that's one of the important tools that is great at it. All the intelligent stuff, right?
I went through the entire course while on a mini vacation, and all your courses are good. In particular, I thought the concept and the execution for this was really well done. Exactly what Michael just said. I'm promoting the course in case this isn't clear.
Thank you.
Because I think everyone should take a look at it. If Git is new to you, Michael's exactly right. He puts it in a visual setting so that it's much less intimidating. It keeps you on the guardrails. And I feel like it's the thing that I should recommend to everybody. But we will get a good dose of that today, 10 things related to the course. So people that watch this should go and sign up and take the course. So we'll have a good dose of that today. Let's go ahead and jump in. All right, we'd like to make this webinar as conversational as possible, as you can see, because Michael and I are just having a conversation here. Should you have any questions during the webinar, any problems, anything that comes up, go ahead and bring it up. Feel free to ask it anytime during the presentation using the chat in either YouTube or in Twitch. You'll see me sometimes like looking over. That's when I'm looking over to answer. We'll have a few pauses where Michael will answer some things that come up, but also I will answer the PyCharm teams in the background. We will answer right there in the chat. So please don't wait until the end of the talk. Ask your questions as you have them. My perennial joke in my 400,000th webinar with Michael for PyCharm is I always joke the first question is going to be over in the chat in about 3 minutes. Is this thing being recorded? Why, yes, it is being recorded. And the recording will be available immediately because this is YouTube. But we will also announce later in the blog on Twitter. We'll get Michael to promote it as well when everything is wrapped up on them. All right, we are now all set. Michael, let's begin. Show us Git in PyCharm.
Absolutely. Let's get started.
Did you just say let's get started?
Let's get started. You see what I did there? So let's just kick this off with a super short, what is version control software? If you're not using version control, it's a simple tool to allow you to explore the history and changes over time of your code, but that's not the way to think of it. It is a superpower to let you try extreme things with your code instead of going, well, I might want to refactor this, but what if I mess it up? I don't really want to deal with that, so I'm not gonna try to make my code better. Or what if I wanted to rewrite the front end in PyScript? What an insane idea. Let's try that. Like, no, that'll break it. Of course it's gonna mess it all up. Let's not do that. With source control, you can see the changes over time. You can split off into other branches, which is almost like I want to live in a parallel universe and try different things, and maybe those universes will merge back together, or maybe they won't. So version control, and in particular Git being the absolute dominating, most popular version control system out there, super important. Now you might think version control is for teams. Obviously, if Paul and I were working on some project, we would set up some kind of GitHub repository, and we would use that for coordinating, and maybe he's going to edit a file and I want to also edit that file. We want to, have some conversation around issues and whatnot. This is a great team project, but for the reasons I just described, you should also be using version control. And if you know anyone who has a folder, and this may be you, hopefully not, but maybe, if you have a folder that has a zipped version of the project, maybe 2 zipped versions, is there's a date on the zip file to say, here's the zipped up copy of my project from back in May, and here's the one from June 1st, and here's the one that I think is working. No, there's working too. Like, even if it's just you, please use version control. It gives you so much power and flexibility. As you'll see, tools like PyCharm absolutely power up your developer experience even more if you're using version control. Great. So Paul and I opened this presentation by talking about using a pragmatic approach to learning and just living in day-to-day Git and source control. And I think that has a lot to do with GUIs like PyCharm and other IntelliJ IDEs, because you just get so much more value. But let's just take a quick walk through that. So imagine somebody says, well, I don't need to use PyCharm for its source control or other sorts of things. This is super easy, Michael. Why do you complicate it? So if I want to put something into Git, I just say git add dot. That adds everything. Better hope your git ignore matches up right, but that's going to add everything. Great. So 3 files are added. That's cool. And then maybe I want to save those into source control. So I'm going to do a git commit and -m. Apparently I added images from the latest UI review. So those get added. And then I want to save those on the server. So I'm going to do a get push, and it does some push up there. Why? Those are really easy. Every one of us could do git add dot. And if you use something like oh my Z shell and oh my posh, you get actually a much, much better terminal experience. And you should be using those tools, by the way. So why do we need GUIs? Well, let me count the ways. First of all, as you're working on a project, you get a constant reminder and awareness of the status of your code. So I could have gone in my terminal and I could have typed git status, and it would list out these files are new, these files are changed, and so on. But when I'm in PyCharm, I just get colors. So like right there, that app.py is blue, install.py is red, setup.py is green, and requirements.txt is default color, gray, light gray. Those all tell me things about source control. So app.py has already been stored and committed to Git, but it has since been edited, so it turns blue. Install.py is not yet tracked in Git. So if I did a git commit, git push, and then I erased my folder and I did a checkout again, install.py is a goner. So it's just not being tracked yet. You may want to add it, or you may want to ignore it. Like for me, having a red file like this is a warning that there's something wrong, and I guess red is the right color for that, isn't it? It tells me I either need to decide this file gets added to Git, so I right click and say add, or it tells me I have not yet ignored it. If I don't intend to track it, I should go ahead and add it to ignore so that it doesn't accidentally get added, git add dot or the equivalent. And then setup.py is green because it's tracked by Git, but is not yet committed. It's like a brand new file, basically. Sometimes when you're in PyCharm and you say right click and say new file, new new Python file, new HTML file, it'll say you're in a GitHub or a Git project. Would you like us to add this? If you say yes, this is the color it becomes. You also see that up here. So while sure it's easy to type git add dot or git status, you have to interrupt what you're doing. Here, just as you're doing your work, it tells you there's some changes. And for example, if you didn't want app.py to change, you're like, oh, whoops, maybe I accidentally hit a character that is going to make my app crash. Maybe I should look into that. So you just get this ambient status that's always there. You can also visualize changes. If you say, I would like to commit some changes, it says, well, here's those 3 files we just spoke about. You're like, I wonder what is the change there again, right? Remember, it's blue, so it was there before, and now it's changed in what way? If I just double click right there, I get a super beautiful diff compare type of thing that shows me on the left what was there before and on the right what is there now. So what is the change? Well, it's obvious. We've added this function. We've added calling this function register logging, and we printed out the very important message logging enabled. By the way, print is probably not the right thing if you're actually doing real logging, but go with me here. All right, so you could just really quickly see this stuff. All right, just double click there. Look at all these branches. Sure, you can ask what branch you're on and you can see the log, print out the git log into your terminal, but like look at all the back and forth between these branches. When like the webcast registration versus the master branch were synced up most recently and so on. Speaking of merging and getting stuff together, so maybe you're doing some merges here and you're like, oh, no problem. We'll just do a commit and we're going to do this. And I want to check back out the other branch and I want to bring the feature branch into the main branch so that we're ready to go. And then you get some sort of, oh no, the automatic merging has failed. That's not great. And then you end up in something like Vim or something. You're like, why am I in Vim and how do I get out of it? Right. And here, there was a really interesting, I think it was a Twitter poll. It could have been a YouTube poll. I don't remember which, but it said, how do you exit Vim? Do you hit Control C? Do you hit Control Q? Do you type :QW? Or do you just restart the computer? And 19% of the people just said restart the computer. So that was fun. But anyway, like this is not probably the tool that you want. And often when I end up in something like this, it's like, well, why am I here? I know there's some kind of conflict, but now I'm in the editor and I've lost the context of even like what I was trying to merge. So anyway, this is not awesome. How do your files change over time? So this is not PyCharm, this is C-Line, but roll with me here for a second. I opened up C Python and went to one of the most important files in all of the C Python runtime, which is ceval.c. If you haven't looked at it, there's a giant while loop with a switch statement that's about 3,000 lines long that says, is the bytecode this? Yes or no? Is the bytecode this? If the bytecode is add, do this. If the bytecode is some list operation, do this. And so this is basically the inner loop of Python. So one thing you can do is you can just say, show me who has changed this file over time, right? So you see on the left, it says Rossum, Stinner, Waters, Rossum. And so for example, I think it's maybe line 441 that I clicked on, but it said, this is the last mass check-in for separate sub-interpreters from Guido von Rossum. And what's interesting about this is from 1997, right? The sub-interpreters thing, I thought this was something that Eric Snow was doing, right? And it is. It's actually more progress is being done on this recently. But look at this. You can just really quickly see what is happening in your code. Okay, we'll talk more about this later. There's actually some cool new PyCharm features for this. Final thing, and I will make this mistake. I don't mean to, but I'm sure that I will. Paul, feel free to yell at me. But conceptually, keep in mind that Git and GitHub, these are not the same, nor is GitLab or anything. But people so frequently use Git and GitHub. Oh, it's a GitHub repository. Well, it's a Git repository on GitHub, right? Things like that. So Git is a program you install and you run. GitHub is a site that hosts a remote version that Git, the program, can talk to, a remote version of your repository. All right. We're going to talk about a bunch of cool features, but I want to just make sure that people understand this concept of distributed source control, because this, I think, is one of the largest stumbling blocks that people run into when getting really good with Git, because there's a multi-step process that you have to go through if you care about working with remote repositories, which means one that anybody else can work with, right? If there's a team, if there's a backup, if it is hosted somewhere, almost every use case, but not every use case, almost every use case of Git is just distributed story. Okay, so let's go through that really quick. So you are this blue woman over here. You can tell you're a developer because you have your curly brace t-shirt on you got at the last conference. Developers are, of course, their wardrobe is very much made up of stuff they get from conferences. Unfortunately, this has been cut down the last few years. And we have some GitHub repository out on some server like GitHub. It doesn't have to be GitHub. You could set up your own. You could use GitLab and so on. But somewhere else, you've got a copy, typically the definitive version of that repository, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Okay. This one is on your computer. That one is on a hosting server, like I said, like GitHub or something. You start out by copying, which in terms of GitHub is called cloning. You copy this over and you create an exact copy, not just of the files, but of all of the history of that repository as well. So you could disconnect from the internet and then do all the like, well, who made this change and so on, right? There's no sort of internet communication stuff going on here. You make your changes locally, and then you push them back. So older version control systems, you would just commit to it and it would be saved. But here you commit to your copy and then you have to push and pull your code. Of course, you have team members. They all have their own cloned copies of the repositories. They're making changes to those. And then they're also doing their push-pull to synchronize it, right? But their copy of the repository, your copy of the repository, they're not really directly connected, and there's no like awareness of a server knowing that somebody's doing something on one. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about what I call the 6 important Git commands. Maybe I should call it concepts because they're kind of bind some together here, as you'll see. We just talked about clone, so how do you get a copy? Status, that's what has changed. We saw that in our example. Add and commit. Add says I would like to eventually commit this stuff, and then commit is the act of doing it. Push and pull is like a synchronize, like I want to make my changes go up and come down. Log is show me the history. Checkout, branch, and merge is synchronize stuff. Every one of these is actually a command you pass to Git, but we'll see how to do it in the UI. So for example, I could say git add new file.py, and now it turns green in PyCharm. Also, when you're on GitHub and you see something like pull requests or forks or stars, these seem like they are GitHub or Git things. They're not. They're only GitHub things, right? This has nothing to do with Git. If you go and fork a repository, like I want to fork the CPython repository, this is just a GitHub thing to help you manage stuff, right? Nothing to do with Git. All right, so first thing, let's just check out and clone something from Git. So we are here, we want to get something on our server. Let's get started. So let's start by going over to GitHub, and I'll call this JetBrains Git Webcast 2022. And we'll make it public. Add me a README. Let's create a Python ignore, and you all can do whatever you want. MIT all the way. So we want to get this onto our computer so we can do more than have initial commit. Go to the green button. We could check it out. We could copy this. We could clone with GitHub Desktop. We could open with Visual Studio. We could even copy this and clone it with the repo, with a terminal, right? I could come down here to my terminal and I could type, I don't even need the Git, just copy the URL, that would work. But let's go over to PyCharm, get out of here for a minute. And let's say Git from version control. Now check this out. I could put the URL here, and that's fine. Or I could come up here and I could just type, wait for it, JetBrains. Oh, come on, faster. There you go. Look at that. So let's just check that one out. And where are we going to put it? Of course, you're going to put it on the desktop. This is a demo. Don't normally put it on the desktop. We trust ourselves. Awesome. Now, it's probably not the right interpreter. It used just the system one. So I'm going to add a new virtual environment because I'm not crazy. So now we've got our virtual environment here. And let's really quickly just do some fun things. Let's create a new Python file. And we'll call this app. Here's that question. Do you want to have a PyCharm add the following file to Git? Sure. Turns green, goes from white to green. And then let's do one more thing. Add requirements.txt, and let's just do some Flask fun here. Install requirements. Notice down here it's pip installing Flask and Jinja and all the things. So here we'll just say import Flask. We'll have app equals flask.flask under name. And we'll have a method. We'll say index. Give it a route. And are we good to go? Well, let's see. We don't want to run current file. Let's go ahead and add a quick configuration. We'll add a Flask one. And we'll say module app. And we're debugging this, so let's do this. How close are we? Hello world. Okay. So we've got our code checked out from GitHub. We did that through get from VCS. And then we actually went to GitHub and did it that way. So let's go back. Let's go ahead and add our files. Now, here's one of the important things. This probably drives everyone else who works this way crazy, but I know that it does me, and I'm sure that it does Paul, because I know he likes to work in a very minimalist PyCharm that doesn't have many buttons but has many keystroke commands. So one of the reasons that you see people saying, oh, what you should do is you should just be saying git add, because I can hit git add and it'll give me autocomplete there. And I never take my fingers off the keyboard. And you'll even see if you go here, we'll get like information about Git, which is pretty dope. But one of the things that people will say is, well, the reason it's so good to be down here is I don't have to take my fingers off the keyboard. And what I do over here is I have to go over with my mouse. I click here and then I check, and it's so slow. Like hotkeys, folks. There's plenty of hotkeys. So on Windows, Command K. I think it's on on Mac it's Command K. On Windows and Linux, it's Control K, I believe. So Command K automatically selects it. Let's go ahead and see if that is something we want. It's not, so I'm going to git ignore it. There we go. It automatically added it to the git ignore, but now the git ignore has to be checked in, which is fine. So let's just call this our starter Flask. Off it goes. Oh, I guess I didn't check that in. Let's go ahead and shoot this. Ignore that PyCharm config. Again, if you wanted to know what happened here, let's cancel out real quick. Ah, I already committed it, rats. Hold on, let me push it. I think if I double click it here, yeah, you can see that it added that diff, right? Again, this is that visual aspect. So we go ahead and push those changes. All right, so that is thing one, checking out our code. And while we're there, we're writing some Python code because who doesn't want to? You also saw the get status while we were there, right? We could go and in the terminal, we could type, show me my files tree structure with tree. I think you might have to brew install tree to get it on Mac OS. I can't remember. But anyway, tree to see the structure there. And then you can type get status. And this sort of, I don't know, that looks really messy. It's more instruction than it is information, right? And maybe the very, very first time you run this, it's helpful to have instructions, but as a way of working, to fill your information with instructions seems not ideal. Nonetheless, right, we saw as we were working, right, if I make changes to this, I don't have to go ask get status, boom, it's blue. What's the change, right? We know. Also, by the way, you even get the sort of get status over here, like in what way has it changed and so on, right? So you get this sort of inline. You can see like, here's a section that's blue. If I put this, whoops. No. Right, you can even see the color that if it was something new, this is blue because it's changed. If I had, right, this is green because it's new, that's blue because it's changed, right? So you get the status not just in the file, but like within the file as well. Awesome. Like, sure, you can type this. Don't do that. Just let the tools tell you as you are already working this sort of ambient discovery. It's worth pointing out just over and over and again, the reason I brought up that whole, what is distributed Git again? All of the stuff that you see here has nothing to do with the actual definitive version of your code. There's some version of the repository that people think of as the real one, the main one on, say, GitHub. This status doesn't tell you whether some file is changed there or not. It's like, it could be changed. It could even be deleted on the main thing. It's just unrelated. This is only you and your clone of the repository, but very good. If we want to merge some changes.
Before you go to thing three, do you mind taking some questions?
This is pretty awesome. Let's go back here. And let's, by the way, I told you about the, like, you can be really crazy and just mess it up. So this calling hello with a smiley face, this weird new thing that does nothing. What is that? Just hit this button up here or hit Command Alt Z, Command Option Z, and it goes back to the way it was working before, right?
And when you get
So
to a top
let's
point,
make
is
some
there a chance
changes
to take some
here.
questions?
But somewhere else. Let me quick copy my repo. That one. Because I don't think I'm logged in and the destination I'm about to head over to, we're going to find out. Let's go to Windows. How about that? So here we are in our PyCharm over on Windows. And let's say we want to check out from version control as well. What I want to show you is what is it like if we have multiple people working on the same project, right? And we want to merge their changes. So let's come over here. Now we've checked this out. Let's create a virtual environment. Thank you for that. That's fantastic. Wait for it. Wait for it. Thanks for configuring that. Let's just real quick run. Oh, I don't think it's going to work. Oh, not what we wanted, because it's just running the app.py and we want it to realize it's Flask. So let's minus and plus Flask. Fast API is awesome, but we're not doing it right now. App. No, not afters. Out of the way. There we go. Just to make sure we can run it. It looks like we can. Okay. Hello world once again. Great. So let's go and make a change over here. We want to have some about function. This is going to return something like that, and let's give it the app dot. Now, there used to be a route in Flask 2. There's now the HTTP verbs like get, post, and so on. So I think you should prefer this. All right, so we want to add that. There we go. I have this challenge of juggling hotkeys across Windows and Mac at the same time. Never easy. So we've got this, and let's just see what happens if I rerun it. And we go to /about. It's a demo app. It is simple, and it is large. Okay, so that's good. This person has done some work, and they're going to commit it. So let's go in here, and we'll just say added that cool about route. Well, that didn't work very well, did it? About route. Okay, we can commit and push. Make it go. All right, that's all committed. Now back over here, let's imagine that we want to just use some logging in quotes here. Print app starting up version. And let's just have it have some version in traditional open source style. We're going to have some zero-ver action going on here. And one of the things I love about PyCharm is if I just hit curly brace and I start to type something that's here and I select it, it'll convert that to an F string, and F strings are great. So let's just run this. All right, so app is starting up. That version still works, but there should be no about because that doesn't exist here, right? All right, so let's go and get the changes. So there is a button up here, this one, that'll say update project, which means do a git pull, or just notice a very simple hotkey, Command T. So I'm just sitting here typing like, oh, I want the latest, so Command T. Now, the very first time you get the choice to either merge or rebase, I'm just going to merge and say that that's how I like to work. And notice we've automatically gotten our changes over here from our Windows developer, who is also me, unfortunately, so the name looks the same. But we keep our logging business here, right? So most of the time, merging is automatic. It's just Command T, just work it into what's up. Do I have the latest? It's always good to kind of be on the latest. So just Command T is the way to go, right? Oh, my headphones died. Interesting. Hold on, Paul. Let me come back here and set it. Just check my audio real quick here. And boy, okay.
Hello.
Sorry, Paul. I'm assuming you're trying to tell me something, and I couldn't hear you. They did die, but I was hearing. Oh yeah, I know what happens. My phone rang, and they switched to it. That's a very nice feature.
Yes, continuity.
Yes,
very helpful technology.
As in disruptivity. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Whenever you have a chance, let's take some questions.
Yeah. Let me real quick. I think we're good. So the one thing that you might see is there might be some kind of change that you need to merge, but just for the sake of time, I'm just going to say, instead of ending up in some kind of VI vim situation in the terminal, PyCharm has something that looks very similar to this, but 3 ways, and it allows you to just merge it together, which is exactly what you want. Let's do the questions.
All right. I'll give you the easiest one first. One's asking, what is that purple timer on your command line?
Purple timer on my command line.
Oh, no, they might mean the dock.
Oh, here, this?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Oh, the purple timer. Good question. So it tells you how long the previous command took to run. So
I will
here that
recommend
tree.
everyone go watch Michael's course because he has whole sections on how to be like Michael Kennedy and set up your shell and do all these other things. So that's covered in there. It's really tricked out. That looks great.
Yeah, thanks. This is great. Right now you can see there's no get changes. Well, this one is edited, so I'm not sure why it's not showing that, but I guess there's no adds or deletes or anything like that. So
On to some
there you go.
harder
But you see the
questions.
branch and all that.
First two are related. How do you remove a file from the index, not the working tree, if you accidentally added it to the Git repo via the IDE? So the idea was like a git rm -- cached file, but IDE shortcut.
So I did this, and I want it more. I want it not added, or you've
Right. So
already
I think
committed it.
yeah, I think and that's a good question whether the person wants a change or the addition. But if you did a rollback there, it's going to leave the file in an unversion status, which I think is what the person wants. So you can use the GUI to walk up to an individual file. You can even walk up to a section of the file and unstage it. I think what they're asking for is unstaging. On to a harder one. Jupyter Notebooks.
Yeah. So what I did was, Paul, is it was add, and then, like you said, just roll back, and it went into unversioned.
Okay.
If it's all the way checked in, I'm not 100% sure how to get it out using the UI.
Next one is kind of related. Someone asked on Twitter for your course about this webinar. Let's say that someone committed a file with some keys in it, and you want it like wiped.
You want it wiped. Yeah, I think that there is a git command to do it, but boy,
like rewriting history and possibly corrupting your repo.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's pretty destructive. I'm not sure how well it would do you, because have you heard of Schgit, which sounds a lot like it should? So they don't have it anymore, I don't believe, but they oh, here we go. There used to be a nice live stream of them just watching the GitHub changelog for every repository, and look how fast those are coming in. Those are secrets being detected in real time by watching the GitHub change notification for all public repos. So people who are out sneaking around for these bad things, there's
we
a
really are
very
the
short
worst
window.
species. This is just shameful.
Yeah.
Versioning
Yeah.
Jupyter Notebooks.
Yeah, you have a
ever
short
do any of
window to
that?
fix it.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Sorry,
That's right.
ask again. Yeah. Sorry, ask again. I spoke over you.
Sorry, you're right. Leaks are going to leak and you don't have much time. Versioning Jupyter Notebooks. DataSpell, our sister IDE for data scientists, in its EAP just added some support for this. Hasn't made it over to PyCharm yet. Is this something that you see in the wild?
All the time, yeah. There's tons of Jupyter stuff up here, right? There's tons of notebooks. I mean, 67,000.
And for people that want a
some
better
of these
representation.
are yeah. I mean, like there's even, I don't see it here because it's not the right project, but there's a bunch of examples. There's even a run on binder, so I can just click a button right here and run it, right?
Yeah.
The problem is you end up with let's see. Find us some. Oh yeah, there we go. There. So it looks like it's running, right? And you saw, let's see, do we have any outputs? No, they don't have the outputs, which I suppose is good. So if somebody had run this cell and they didn't do something to clean it up, you would actually see the result right here, right? But that result is just stored in JSON as part. It's like code plus the last output of it in the code. It's really a big problem. So I think the thing to check out is NBDev.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, I know some of these things, like NBDev, will have a way to like automatically clear out that output as a Git hook. In which case you can sort of, as you save it in, it'll clear out the stuff that was going to be an absolute merge conflict. Yeah.
Let's get back to the presentation, because a couple of questions you have are on things I believe that you're going to go over next about merge and conflicts and stuff. So Don O'Hara, you had a question about which IDEA files are okay to commit. We'll come back to that and the other questions.
Yeah, I would love to hear what you have to say about that, Paul, by the way. But yes,
be a coward and make you answer it. Internally, we disagree about this, all the advocates.
Okay, interesting.
So I'll handle that one.
Perfect. You'll give your side of that opinion.
Sure.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, more questions, or should we keep going?
No, please continue, and then we'll save the other questions for the next stopping point.
All right. So one of the things that just blows me away is how good Git is good at automatically merging. Like, how often does it work well, right? It's very rare that there's a meaningful merge conflict compared to how often I think it should happen. The next three are on branching. Let me really quickly highlight some of the reasons for branching, because understanding the motivation, not just git branch is a command, but like, where do you branch? Why do you branch? Will you merge back? Should you merge back? Do you merge back to your repository, to some other person's repository if you forked it? All these kinds of things. So there's different reasons for branching, and this is not exhaustive, but it's a good one. You might just branch for bug fixes. So if I've done a bunch of versions, I've released version 1.1, 2. This could be for a library or a desktop application that you ship. It doesn't make a lot of sense for a web app because you just always have the latest version running generally. But imagine you've already shipped version 2 and you're working beyond that, but now there's a problem with 1.1. If you want to fix that, you can just branch off from that old one and ship 1.1.3 with a fix, or whatever it turns out to be, for people who haven't upgraded yet, right? So you might branch for bug fixes. You might branch for more stable development. And there's two ways in which you can do it. Here's the simplistic, and I would say probably not recommended by Michael, way, but it does help. So instead of just always committing to the main branch, which means only some of the time could you actually release software from it, create a dev branch, and every now and then merge stable changes as features get done. The reason I would not necessarily recommend this is the dev branch, everyone's committing to it. So if there's a large team working on it, you're still going to end up stepping on each other's feet, even if you don't destabilize the software. And you could reverse this. You could say you always commit to main, and we're going to have a production branch or a release branch or whatever. Experimentation, this is what I talked about, living a parallel life. You could say, oh, what if we rewrote the front end in Vue? Branch over and try that and see how it works. What if we wanted to switch from synchronous to an async ORM, say from Mongo Engine over to Beanie from MongoDB? Some of these changes worked out for good. Looks like that async ORM was good, so we're going to merge that back. The Vue one, turns out we're not doing that, so we just left it and abandoned it. But this idea of creating a branch, experimenting, or finishing a feature, very great. Speaking of features, we can do the same idea just for features we are pretty sure we're going to do, right? So we could say, I'm going to add a new feature, make a bunch of changes over here. And then when we're finished, we could have a code review. We could do a pull request. We could do all sorts of stuff to have a conversation and an understanding of that, rather than just sticking it back in the source control. And then when it's all good, we've done a review, it finally goes back. This new feature idea is very, very similar to an open source pull request where you forked a repo, but that check-in, that merge, instead of going back to your repo, it goes back to the original as the pull request. All right, so here's reasons you might branch. let's check out some branches. Let's go over here. Let's do like this. Let's do it this way. So we can check out a branch and we can create a branch. I don't even want this file anymore. I just created that as an example. So let's delete it safely. Let's imagine we're going to try something crazy, like let's add HTML templates to our website. So we can come over here, create a new branch and call it HTML. Check that out. Notice it now switches to HTML. Again, just ambient information. All right, let's go real quick, do a thing. Let's go over and create a new directory, called it templates. Let's go into PyCharm, mark directory as template folder. It says we don't know how you speak HTML. We speak it via agenda. There we go. Let's just add an HTML file index. It's going to be demo app. There we go. Format that. And then let's, instead of doing this, let's do that. Let's say flash.render template and watch this. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for that autocomplete. That's awesome. There we go. And the whole team, I suppose. But that's really awesome that there's that integration. So look, now we're doing this. So this looks really good, really good. Let's commit this to our branch. We could commit, and it's local here. But over on GitHub, we don't even have it. What happens if I just do a push? Is it going to go anywhere? I think it'll probably give us an error. Oh, no. It created the branch for us. Even better. Even better. We could have gone over to our new branch and actually said right click or gone into this section and said push it up to the server, but PyCharm noticed that it wasn't up there. So now in this one, we could even do a pull request over to our thing, which we're not going to do. But if we switch now to this branch that's created, we have our templates, as you can see. Awesome. So we can check out branches. I'm going over here. So we want the main back. We can check out the branch like that. And notice that we no longer have our templates folder. We have our hello world as a string, all of that. Okay. So done through here. Let's go back to this. Pretty awesome. We saw that we can create a branch. I started out that way. I kind of did 5 then 4, but that's fine. And then we automatically got that pushed to the remote repository origin/HTML. When we tried to push it, instead of failing, PyCharm just said, you know what, you're gonna want to create that branch. So it did. Another thing that we can do, we've actually have a parallel different version of source control going that I think is great. So if for some reason you make some change and you want to roll it back, but it looks like this, and you're like, oh no, I don't have a Git repository, or I never checked the original version into Git. So if I roll it back, it's going to roll it too far back or something like that. There's a parallel local history that's similar to Git. Like it's like a local, not synced with some other server, has no origin branches, no branches really. Version, I can go over here and right click, and right by Git, I have a local history, and I can just say, show my local history. And look, it has everything. If I make it large, it has everything we've been doing. So here I've got these changes. As you can just see, as I click around, these are all the changes, and it gets tagged with Git operations or source control operations. So here's the creation of the app that had nothing to do with source control. Here's some random change. I guess this is the change I made to actually write the Flask thing. Well, this is the changes relative to, the latest. And then I did some check-in of my original version, right? Notice there's the commit, ignore that PyCharm file. Then I rolled some stuff back, right? I did this stuff and then I rolled it back, right? So you got this really rich local history that has actually nothing to do with Git. Even if it wasn't a Git repo, you still would have this. All right,
let's see a few more things. It will save you
please do.
in between commits. So if you
Yes,
do something
exactly.
horrible in between a commit, it can also recover a deleted file. You can also recover a deleted file. You can do local history on a folder and see deletes.
Yeah. Yeah, local history is awesome. It has saved me before. Okay. This one is awesome. So actually, do I want to do it? Let me open up a different project here because this will be more meaningful. So I have this project called Fast API Chameleon. It allows you to use Chameleon templates on top of a, for Fast API. So for example, let's see, go find some tests. So for example, I could just say Fast API Chameleon dot template and put this onto something that returns a dictionary. Normally this would be an API endpoint, but it goes and says, okay, there's a thing called index over in the template in the home folder. And so it's going to return that, for example. Really cool. Some people had some thoughts on it. And they gave me a PR to try to make some changes to allow something like this to describe error pages and 404s and stuff. So in GitHub, what you get is a pull request, and it's got a conversation, and they've forked it over to their repo, and then they've got some special commit over on their repository that has the code. My repository doesn't have the code, and they say, I'd like to give this to you. So it's pretty janky to be able to get their version of their repository checked out in the right way so that you can like exactly see what's going on. Or you could make your way left right over there, just below commit, and go to pull requests. And check this out. This one is closed, so it doesn't show up there, but look at this. Watch this. Add status code for response. And you get all of the GitHub conversation from this person here. And here this is their commit right there. We could go see their commit. This is a conversation. It turned out it wasn't the right way to do it. But look at this. I could check this out. I could just click right there, and it'll say, you want to see what code they wrote and what it looks like, and you want to try it locally, just click this. You can also assign reviewers, and if it weren't already closed, you could merge it, or you could close it without merging, and so on. So this is really cool to be able to see the PR. Obviously, you can go to GitHub. We all have ready access to browsers, but what's awesome is checkout. I want to see the code that they're proposing locally. If this is like a UI thing or something I want to explore on how it works, click that, run it. It doesn't change your project or anything. Then you can decide if you still want to accept it, reject it, modify it, and so on. So that to me is a killer feature. All right. Merging branches. So I want to give you a real quick analogy, and then I'll show you how the merge branch stuff works. Branching is awesome. It allows you to go and work in a parallel universe, try new things that are separate and unrelated from your regular code. But it's also probably the best analogy to think about it is like a credit card. Credit cards allow you to do amazing stuff. I don't have money. It's in the bank. I can't go get it right now. I don't have cash, but I want to buy this thing. So let's just put it on the credit card. Or I want to go on the internet and tell them I need this thing without shipping them a check, which would be weird, right? But if you use your credit card too much, and especially if you don't sort of tend to it, as in pay it down, you end up in a not so great situation. You end up in bad credit card debt and all sorts of things. So what you should really think about is, if we go back to the reasons for branching, is how can I be separated from the main branch, say in this feature branch example, the minimum amount of time. So can I merge stuff back, not just at the end, but frequently? So let's go back to our project. In this case, let's merge our HTML version in. So I just go over here to HTML, merge HTML into main, boom, done. If there were merge conflicts, I'd get a cool three-way merge dialog. And now if I look, there's actually no commits because those were already merged as part of Git, but there are things to push, right? There are the changes to push. So let's push those up and we'll be good to go. Paul, I've only got 2 more and a few more minutes. So let's check those out. All right, so you can quickly merge those in. 2 quick final things here. if you've got some code and you want to share it, maybe this is the most amazing app I've ever written. I could right click and say create a gist, and it'll create a public or secret one. It'll open it up in the browser, right? This will be on GitHub that you can share at gist.github.com. That's pretty awesome. And then the last one, you might have noticed it right here. See these things? These are new. Paul, I don't know when you snuck those in, but good job. So if I click that, it pops open the different commits. And if I click on those, it actually shows me the history. So if I go down here, I can click on this one. Oops, I can click on this one. I can hide it back. You also click it again and it just goes away. So this is pretty cool. You can see who's changed it. I guess if I go back here, for example, I might be able to find, let's go to one of these tests, this one. For example, Antonio added those. I don't have to run git log and then go into this file and figure stuff out. I can just see it as I'm working. So that's pretty cool. All right, that's it. You want to check out the Git course, talkpython.fm/git. And with that, Paul, that's everything.
We got lots to go over. Okay,
all right, let's do it.
First, a good tip from Divakar Rex, who says he really likes the cherry picking features from the Git tab at the bottom of the IDE. Makes it easy to navigate around the source without having to check GitHub with it.
Yeah.
As you can imagine out there, the JetBrains PyCharm team itself has a pretty big code base to deal with. Lots of people doing lots of commits. And so the cherry picking capabilities are something we use ourselves quite a bit in the production of PyCharm.
Yeah, it's got a few commits. Like 12 days ago, I synchronized this and I'm almost 1,000 commits behind. So you guys are on it. I'm gonna sync back up.
All right. Okay, let's go to Don O'Hara's question about idea files. Don, you're going to be disappointed in the answer. We argue internally on the advocacy team. I personally don't. I don't trust it. That's why I don't commit in a .idea directory. There are certain files in there which are considered possibly stable, but at the end of the day, it's a serialization format for Java data structures, and so it may or may not be that stable. And an example of a problem is Michael puts in a run configuration, but it's hardwired to a path that doesn't exist on my machine. Well, there are ways to get around that with magic variables for directories and stuff, but something somewhere is going to go in that won't work for me. And there'll be a merge conflict and it'll be iffy.
There's a few that are kind of stable. Like if I did a refactor rename on this and gave the project just a Git webcast, right? So that if I'm here, it shows up there, right? That .name, that's kind of sort of safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So our general solution for this is the settings repository stuff and things like that. But that's an area that we've got to get better at. And our new IDE fleet has some reimagining of that. Yashar asked, and I believe you went and covered it quite well, about code review and pull requests in PyCharm. Michael's course does a really good job, I think, of opening the door on that and showing at a good pace how you can sit in the IDE and do all kinds of things like participate in conversations and do an actual code review. But the nice thing is, while you're doing all of that, you're in the IDE. So you're getting autocomplete in the middle of a merge something or other.
Yeah, and I didn't even point out, let's just put, I'll force this to give us a merge conflict here.
Okay.
Let's do it in our window. While you keep talking, I'll
sure.
get it to you.
Sure.
I think this is really worth covering because people.
Yeah, because there was another question about the merge conflict capabilities and what's the middle pane and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, here it comes. So try to update the project. Oh, I didn't commit this one, did I? Or did I? Maybe I didn't push this. That's what I didn't do. I just didn't push it. There's no way those are not gonna. So here we go. I guess I'm doing it on Windows, but I can say merge. And all right, so this one's going to be the one that gets it. Here we go. So now there's some kind of merge conflict, and you hit merge. Hold on. Oh, shouldn't I see more?
Make
of
it
this
bigger.
ball?
Yeah.
Oh, why was that so small? That's I would say should be larger. I know it's probably some weird default thing I did, but here you can see there's. Do you take this one? Do you take that one? And you can hit the X to make it go. Say I reject that, or hit the arrow to say I accept it. Right. So you want a home to be /A or /B? Which do you want, Paul?
I'll go with your version because you're always right.
Oh, thank you. All right. So we're going to hit that. And now I can accept it. Right. This middle pane is like what you get as a result. But what I wanted to show you is in here, you still, as Paul pointed out, you still get all. It's like a real editor. It's not like, oh, you're kicked over to some weird VI thing in the terminal and you don't really even know what file, like, or why you're in there or something, right? You get the full editor experience. And if I screw something up, you get like the code checking and the code intentions and stuff, right? Like,
yep.
Okay,
next one is from Sir Giveaway. He's asking about git stash versus patches. And Michael, you can talk about the theory a little bit if you want, but one of the nice things in our IDEs, there's this VCS layer atop all of the version control systems that's really mature, and it's got concepts about how to shelve changes and stuff like that. And really good UI support, so you can put this set of things over there, this set of things over here, go back, bring those back over, all that kind of stuff when you're in the middle of doing some work.
Yeah. So if I had to change here and then I wanted to switch branches, right, I might not want to carry that uncommitted change over to the other branch, but I also don't want to throw it away, right? So you can, stash it, right?
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, honestly, I don't use patch really, so I don't have a lot to say on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's for prehistoric days when people didn't use GitHub or GitLab or something like that to share differences and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I want to switch over, Michael, if it's okay, to 2 tips from the PyCharm team.
Okay.
I went over into Slack and asked them, what would you like shown? And Lisa, our technical team lead and the woman who manages the debugger for us, has one.
Yeah, she does awesome work with the debugger. Hi, Lisa.
Oh yeah, great PyCon talk a couple of years ago, like write your own debugger. And actually bring your IDE up again if you could. And
I got it, I think.
What if you want to see some changes in just a part of a file? So Michael, if you could inside index that route, that view, put some new lines. So I'll actually start with one of my tips, which is contrast is a little off, but you can kind of see it. Michael, mouse over the gutter decoration. We give gutter decorations to show you changes, but you can click on them. So when you click on that gutter decoration, you get a pop-up that lets you see the diff of that block. You can roll it back. You can unstage it and things like that. Hit escape to get out of that. If you wanted, though, and it wasn't really a contiguous block, you could, Michael, if you could just highlight, select some segment of, all right. And so this one's Lisa's. Make a big selection.
Like
and
this?
Then you can do show history for selection. So maybe do a search for the action. We'll go to the Git menu.
Okay.
Yeah, Git, show history for selection. Near the top.
Oh, look at that. Okay. That's pretty cool. I did not know that.
I knew
maybe
it.
You were in like C and it's 3,000 lines long and you only want to see this one little section, right? Cool. Okay.
Yeah, and it's another example of letting the tool do the janitorial work for you instead of bringing up the diff of the entire file, and then you got to teach your mind to ignore the parts you don't want to look at. Let the tool show you what you want to look at. The
Well, let
non-field
me add
has a
one
good
really quick
point.
thing to follow up with what you said about this. On the right as well, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nafil, my colleague, developer advocate for Python, brings up a point in the commit window. So do a Command K. And if you want to commit to something that isn't, instead of committing to, you want to commit to a different branch. He says you can
Okay.
do it from here by clicking on main.
Main.
So,
Oh, I see.
yeah.
Hold on.
No, that wasn't it then.
No, but it does say commit to main there.
Yeah, I must have the wrong tool window that he's talking about. Okay, so I'll go over. Let's see if there's anybody else that has any sub modules. I'm not going to talk about sub modules. Sorry. And give me a second to block a user. That's just wrong, man.
Welcome to YouTube, Paul.
Yep. All right. A couple of things that I think are kind of cool. Some of them you've already shown. For example, that Michael Kennedy that's on the screen, Chris May asked about that. This is something new. This is was available before by right-clicking in the gutter and saying show annotations, but people didn't know you could do that. So now we're kind of making it more visible. And that's in 2022.2 across all of our IDEs. Partial commits. Michael, I don't think you talk about this in the course, do you?
No, I didn't actually. But I could go here.
Yep.
And I could say, let's only check in the indexing,
Yes.
not the more, right?
That's one I use a lot. Yep.
Yeah.
So after doing this commit, it still says the file needs committing because it's still unstaged, or staged rather, because that other part still needed to be committed. And you can see in Michael's, the gutter decoration went away. Yeah, for the part that he left, that he committed. Let's see, we're talking about.
Yeah, those are probably two repos over here, right? If I go back to oh, that's a lot. If you look at my commits, right, there's the one that's got only the indexing, right? Not the other, not the about. Beautiful.
Yep. Let's see. And then one small point before getting to a big point, then I'm finished. The small point is search anywhere will look in your commit messages. So search everywhere is shift. And if you want to jump to a commit, you can put in a word from one of the commit messages and it'll show up.
Got a bit more, probably. There's so many.
That one's probably not going to work.
Probably a bad choice.
And then the last thing is, could you bring up the Git window? This is something in Michael's course. He does a really good job. No, the Git tool window, not the commit window. Thing at the bottom.
Yes, thank you.
He does a really good job talking over this repo is not the best example, but when you've got a fork, you're going to have your local changes, your forks changes, and the upstreams changes. And you want to keep all of those in sync. And it's a lot to load in your head. Our Git tool has this swim lane approach that makes it clear, you know, what left and came back and how am I out of date? Where am I in the list and things like that. Michael, I think you did a really good job in the course of explaining that.
Thank you. Thanks. And I think this kind of stuff is the thing that is not impossible, but close to impossible to get on the command line with, you know, git status, git log, and so on, because I don't know how there may be some CLI extension that prettifies it, but yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I believe that covers everything. Let me block another user. I believe that covers everything, and we've gotten everybody, all the questions that popped up have come up, so we will switch back to the slides. And again, I really would like to encourage everyone to go take a look at Michael's course on this. Someone, Don, I believe, Don O'Hara in the chat mentioned it's really nice to have a video series of courses that you can go to slowly. You realize you lost track of something, you can go back, you can study it. Michael, I believe is this one of the courses where you have your kind of community support where people can ask questions?
Yeah, sure. All my courses have office hours. People can drop by.
Office hours, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if you have the hardest, freakiest, my GitHub repo is corrupt question, I encourage you to book an office hour with Michael Kennedy. He'd love to hear.
Is that the one where you delete the repo and then you check it out again?
Yes. We can't save you from that. All right. So thanks, Michael, for talking with us about Git and how a UI like PyCharm can save the day by making it more approachable. If any of you have any questions later, please don't hesitate to reach out to us by email, by social media. If you tweet at PyCharm, you've got like a 30% chance that I'll be the one, depending on time of day, to reply. So reach out to us. If you'd like more information on PyCharm, go to our website at jetbrains.com/PyCharm. So easy. Even a caveman like me can remember it. And if you haven't already, check out our PyCharm blog where you can find up-to-date PyCharm news. We're in the middle of kind of release season. So if you want to find out what's coming, let me tell you, stuff is coming. In addition to educational resources such as this webinar. We'd love your feedback on this webinar. Michael would love your feedback on this webinar. Feel free to contact us on Twitter, or even better, in the after webinar survey. Yeah, we read that very carefully. We'll email that around in just a bit. That is it for us today. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us and walking us through all of this.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Paul. Thanks everyone for coming in and watching. It's been great.
All right. Hope everybody has a nice day.